The garden is drowning in late summer roses when she first sees him, pale blooms heavy on their stems, their petals beginning to brown at the edges, their scent so thick in the evening air it catches in her throat. She has been sitting on the stone bench beneath the arbor for nearly an hour now, her worn prayer book open in her lap but unread, watching the light fade from gold to amber to the deep violet that precedes true darkness. This is her stolen time, the quiet space between Vespers and Compline when the other women are occupied with their own devotions and she can pretend, just for a moment, that she is not forgotten. The convent has been her home for 23 years, the only home she has ever known, and she has long since stopped expecting anything to change. The sisters are kind in their distant way, the work is manageable, the prayers are familiar. She has learned to find contentment in small things, the perfect spiral of a rose, the warmth of sunlight through stained glass, the satisfaction of stitching a straight seam. She has learned not to wonder about the parents who sent her here as an infant, not to imagine what her life might have been if someone, somewhere, had wanted her enough to keep her. She has learned. Mostly. But some nights, like tonight, the weight of her invisibility presses down so heavy she can barely breathe. She watches the other women, the ones with families who visit, with futures that extend beyond these stone walls, with the certainty that they matter to someone, somewhere. And she feels the absence of those things like a physical ache, like something vital has been carved out of her chest and the space left behind echoes with loneliness. Sister Maria taught her to read when she was 6 years old, recognizing in the quiet child a hunger for something beyond the convent's daily routine. Since then, Serafina has devoured every book in the small library, histories and saints' lives, and the few volumes of poetry the convent possesses. Reading became her escape, her window into a world that existed beyond these stone walls, even if she could never reach it. She is so lost in her melancholy that she doesn't hear the footsteps approaching until a voice speaks from behind her. Forgive the intrusion. The words are cultured and smooth, carrying an accent she cannot quite place, and she startles so violently her prayer book tumbles from her lap into the roses. I didn't mean to frighten you. The sister at the gate said I might find you here. She turns and finds a man standing at the garden's entrance, tall and dark-haired, dressed in the fine clothes of minor nobility, his face cast in shadow by the failing light. Something in her chest does a strange little flip, half fear and half something she has no name for, and she rises quickly from the bench, her hands smoothing automatically over her simple grey dress as if that might make her presentable to someone like him. Forgive me, my lord, I wasn't expecting. The words tangle on her tongue. She has spent her entire life in this place, working in the gardens and the laundry and the kitchen, her hands made strong from labor even as the sisters told her she was too delicate for the outside world. And now she stands here stammering like a child while he watches with an expression she cannot read. Please, don't apologize. He steps forward into the last of the light and she sees his face clearly for the first time. Pale skin, almost luminous in the dusk. Dark eyes that seem to catch and hold the fading day. Features arranged with such symmetry they might have been carved by a master sculptor. He is beautiful in a way that makes her chest tight, that makes her acutely aware of her own plainness, her own unremarkable existence. I'm the one who should apologize for disturbing your peace. I am Lord Cassian Blackwood. I've recently taken residence in the manor 2 miles south, and I've been making the rounds to introduce myself to my neighbors. Oh, it's all she can manage. She retrieves her prayer book from the roses, brushes dirt from its cover with trembling fingers. The leather is cracked and worn, the pages stained with years of use, and she feels suddenly ashamed of its shabbiness, of everything about herself that is shabby and poor and forgettable. I see. That's welcome. Welcome to the valley, my lord. Cassian, please. His smile is gentle, inviting, and does something strange to her heartbeat. And you are? Serafina. She offers the name like a gift she's not certain he wants, her voice barely above a whisper. Just Serafina. I've lived here at the convent since I was an infant. I help the sisters with their work, mending, gardening, that sort of thing. Nothing of importance. Something flickers in his expression, surprise, perhaps, or pity, or something else entirely, but it's gone so quickly she might have imagined it. I would argue that any work done with care is of importance, he says softly, and his voice carries a weight that makes her look up and meet his eyes. These roses, for instance. Someone has tended them with great devotion. They're the most beautiful I've seen in all my travels. That's me. The admission comes before she can stop it, and she feels heat rise in her cheeks. I mean, I'm the one who tends the garden. It's my favorite task. The roses don't. She stops, realizes how pathetic she sounds, but is watching her with such genuine interest that the words spill out anyway. The roses don't ask questions or expect anything beyond water and attention. They don't mind that I'm nobody. They bloom for me just the same. His expression does something complicated, softens and tightens simultaneously, and he takes another step closer. You are not nobody, Serafina. The way he says her name, like it matters, like it means something, makes her throat go tight. She has heard her name spoken thousands of times in this place, always in the same tone of mild indifference, and now here is this stranger saying it like a benediction, and she doesn't know what to do with the feeling it creates in her chest. I thank you. That's kind of you to say. It's not kindness. It's observation. He gestures to the garden, to the roses and the carefully tended beds and the small touches that show someone's love. This is the work of someone who sees beauty and tends it carefully. Someone who gives more than she takes. That's not nobody, Serafina. That's someone worth knowing. She cannot speak past the lump in her throat, can only stand there clutching her prayer book and trying not to cry at this unexpected gentleness from a stranger. She has gone so long without anyone noticing her, without anyone seeing her as anything more than an extra pair of hands for the convent's endless work, that she has forgotten what it feels like to be looked at like she matters. I should go. She manages the words finally, though they come out thick and unsteady. It's nearly time for Compline and I shouldn't be. Wait. He reaches out as if to stop her, then seems to think better of it and lets his hand fall. Would you permit me to visit again? I find I'm quite lonely in that large manor, and I suspect you know more about these grounds, about this valley, than anyone. I would. He pauses, and something vulnerable crosses his face. I would very much like to see you again. To talk with you. If you're willing. She should say no. Should tell him it wouldn't be proper, that the sisters would disapprove, that she has no business entertaining the attentions of a lord, that people like him don't really see people like her. But the word that emerges is, yes, barely a whisper. An exhale of longing she didn't know she was carrying. His smile deepens, transforms his face into something that steals her breath and makes her feel simultaneously more alive and more terrified than she has ever been. Tomorrow evening, then. Same time, same place. She nods because speech has abandoned her entirely, and watches as he bows, actually bows, to her, as if she were someone worthy of such courtesy, and disappears into the gathering night. Only when she is certain he is gone does she sink back onto the bench, her heart hammering against her ribs like it's trying to escape, her prayer book clutched so tightly her knuckles have gone white. Someone wants to see her again. Someone looked at her plain face and simple dress and saw something worth returning for. Someone spoke her name like it was beautiful. The impossibility of it keeps her awake long into the night, staring at the ceiling of the small room she shares with two other women, replaying every word he said and every expression that crossed his face. She tells herself not to hope, not to believe that this means anything, that he will probably not come back and she should prepare herself for the disappointment. But hope is a stubborn thing, and by the time dawn breaks she has imagined 100 different conversations they might have, 100 different ways he might look at her again with that intensity that made her feel seen. He comes the next evening as promised, emerging from the dusk like something from a dream. She has been waiting for an hour, pretending to read her prayer book while her stomach ties itself in knots, half convinced that she imagined the entire encounter. But here he is, real and solid and smiling at her like she is the reason he came. Good evening, Serafina. His voice is warm, intimate, and she feels her name settle into her chest like something precious. I hope I'm not disturbing you. No. Not at all. I was just. She gestures vaguely at the garden, at her book, at nothing. Sitting. Thinking. May I join you? He waits for her nod before settling onto the bench beside her, careful to leave space between them, respectful of propriety even in this private place. Tell me about your day. What occupies your time when you're not tending these magnificent roses? And so she tells him. Haltingly at first, then with growing confidence as he listens with genuine interest to her descriptions of mending and washing and helping Sister Catherine in the kitchen. Small, mundane tasks that have made up the fabric of her life, rendered somehow meaningful by his attention. He asks questions that show he's really listening, about the recipes Sister Catherine uses, about the technique for mending different fabrics, about how she decides which roses need pruning and which should be left to grow wild. "You have a gift," he says when she finishes describing how she saved a rose bush that everyone else thought was dead. "For seeing potential where others see only loss. For knowing when to tend and when to let something find its own way. It's just plants." She ducks her head, embarrassed by the praise. "Anyone could do it. But they don't." That's the point. He shifts slightly closer, and she catches his scent, cold stone and pine and something faintly metallic she cannot place. "You do it. You see what needs attention and you provide it. That's rare, Serafina. That's valuable." She doesn't know what to say to that, so she changes the subject. "What about you? What brings a lord to this remote valley? Surely there are more interesting places you could be." Something shadows his expression for just a moment. "I'm tired of interesting places. Tired of courts and politics and people who only see what they can gain from knowing me. I wanted somewhere quiet. Somewhere I could simply exist without performance. And you chose here." She cannot keep the disbelief from her voice. "The middle of nowhere, where nothing ever happens." "I chose here," he confirms, and his gaze holds hers with an intensity that makes her breath catch, because sometimes nothing happening is exactly what a person needs. Sometimes quiet is the greatest luxury of all. They talk until full dark, until Sister Margaret rings the bell for Compline and Serafina reluctantly rises to go. Cassian stands with her, and for a moment they simply look at each other in the moonlight that has replaced the sunset. "Tomorrow?" he asks softly. "Tomorrow," she agrees. He comes the next evening, and the evening after that, and the evening after that. Their meetings develop a rhythm, a comfortable pattern that feels inevitable, like something that has always existed and is only now being revealed. He asks her about the garden and she finds herself talking more than she has in years, her initial shyness melting under the warmth of his attention. He tells her about his travels, cities she has only read about in the books Sister Maria gave her, landscapes she cannot imagine, people and customs so foreign they might as well be from another world entirely. "Have you ever wanted to leave?" he asks one evening, perhaps 2 weeks into their acquaintance. "To see what's beyond the valley?" Every day the admission comes without thought, raw and honest. "But wanting and having are different things. I have no money, no skills beyond mending and gardening, nowhere to go. The sisters have been kind to let me stay as long as they have. Some convents turn out their charges at 18. I'm fortunate they've kept me." Fortunate, he repeats the word like it tastes bitter. "You've spent 23 years in service to people who view you as a burden they're kind to tolerate. That's not fortune, Serafina. That's injustice." She has never thought of it that way. Has never allowed herself to feel angry at the circumstances of her life because anger serves no purpose when there is no possibility of change. But hearing him say it, hearing someone else acknowledge the unfairness of her situation, something in her chest cracks open. "I used to imagine my parents," she says quietly. "When I was small. I would make up stories about why they left me here. Important missions they had to complete, dangers they were protecting me from, promises they made to come back for me when I was older. I think I believed those stories until I was 12 or 13. Old enough to understand that no one was coming. That I had been left here because I was unwanted, and that was all the story there was." His hand covers hers on the bench, cool and steady. "Their failure to see your worth says nothing about your worth. Only about their blindness." She turns her hand over, laces her fingers through his, and feels something shift between them. Something that has been building since that first evening, gaining weight and substance with each meeting. "Why are you being so kind to me?" The question emerges small and uncertain. "You could have anyone. You could go anywhere. Why spend your evenings talking to an orphan nobody in a convent garden?" "Because when I'm with you, the world feels less heavy." His voice is low, intimate, meant only for her. "Because you look at roses like they're miracles and speak about dirt and water with more passion than most people reserve for gold. Because you don't look at me expecting anything except honest conversation, and I have found that rarer than you might imagine." He pauses, and when he continues his voice is even softer. "Because from the first moment I saw you, trying to make yourself invisible on that bench, something in me recognized something in you. And I cannot stop wanting to be near you, Serafina. God help me, I cannot stop. Her heart is hammering so hard she's certain he can hear it. I don't understand. What could you possibly recognize in me? I'm nothing like you. I'm lonely. The word cuts through her protest. You're lonely in the same way I'm lonely. Surrounded by people who see only what they expect to see, never what's really there. Performing existence rather than living it. Waiting for someone to finally look closely enough to see you. The accuracy of it steals her breath. She has never had words for the hollow ache that lives beneath her ribs, but he has found them, has named the thing she has carried unnamed for 23 years. Yes, she whispers. Yes, that's exactly, yes. I see you. His other hand comes up to cup her face, gentle and cool against her skin. I see how carefully you tend things, how much love you pour into work that no one acknowledges. I see how you make yourself small so you won't be a burden, how you've learned to need nothing because needing led only to disappointment. I see you, Serafina, and he stops, seems to struggle with something internal, and when he continues his voice is rough with emotion. I am falling in love with you. Helplessly. Completely. Falling in love with you. She should be terrified. Should pull away, should remind herself that this is impossible, that men like him don't fall in love with women like her. But all she feels is a rushing, overwhelming relief, like she has been holding her breath for 23 years and can finally exhale. I think I'm falling in love with you too, she admits, and feels tears spill down her cheeks. I've been trying not to. I've been telling myself it's foolish, that I'm setting myself up for heartbreak. But I can't stop, Cassian. Every evening I tell myself not to hope, and every evening you come back and I hope anyway. He kisses her then. Leans forward slowly, giving her time to pull away, and presses his lips to hers with a tenderness that makes her soul ache. His mouth is cool, his touch careful, and when she sighs against him he makes a sound that might be pain or might be joy. The kiss deepens, becomes something desperate and claiming, and when they finally break apart she notices that his breathing seems deliberate somehow, measured in a way that feels performed rather than natural. The thought flickers through her mind and then vanishes under the weight of his next words. Let me court you properly. Let me give you everything you've been denied. Let me show you what it means to be seen and chosen and cherished. Yes, she doesn't even have to think about it. Yes, please, yes. On the fourth evening after that first kiss, he brings her a book of poetry, a beautiful leather-bound volume that must have cost more than she has seen in her entire life. I noticed you reading, he explains. And I thought you might enjoy this. It's a collection of verses about gardens and growing things. She takes it with trembling hands, runs her fingers over the embossed cover, and feels something in her chest expand so large it seems impossible to contain. No one has ever given her a gift before. Not for her birthday, which no one knows, or for any holiday. She owns nothing that wasn't a hand-me-down, nothing chosen specifically for her. And here he is, offering her a book he selected because he paid attention to what she loves. Thank you. The words are inadequate, but they're all she has. This is, I don't know what to say. It's too much. It's nowhere near enough. He settles beside her on the bench and opens the book to a marked page. Here. Let me read to you. His voice transforms as he reads, becomes something melodic and hypnotic, and she closes her eyes and lets the words wash over her. Poetry about spring flowers and autumn harvest, about the cycle of growth and decay and renewal, about finding beauty in small persistent things. When he finishes, she opens her eyes to find him watching her with an expression so tender it makes her ache. Again, she whispers. Please read it again. He does. Reads until the moon rises high and Sister Margaret's bell calls her to evening prayers. Reads until his voice grows rough with some emotion she cannot name. Reads until she has memorized not just the words but the way he speaks them, the rise and fall of his cadence, the places where he pauses for emphasis. On the seventh evening, he brings her a shawl of soft blue wool, the color of a clear winter sky. You were shivering last night, he explains as he drapes it around her shoulders. I couldn't stop thinking about it. About you being cold. The shawl is warm and soft and smells faintly of lavender, and she burrows into it with a happiness that feels almost painful in its intensity. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to. His hands linger on her shoulders, and she can feel the coolness of them even through the wool. It's strange, she thinks, how he's always cool to the touch, even in the warmth of late summer. But she pushes the observation away. I want to take care of you, Serafina. Want to give you all the things you should have had all along. Let me. She turns in his arms, looks up into his face that has become so dear to her in these few short weeks. Why does this feel too good to be true? Why can't I shake the feeling that I'm going to wake up one day and find out I imagined all of this? Something flickers in his expression, guilt, perhaps, or pain, but it's gone before she can identify it. Because you've learned not to trust good things. But I promise you, Serafina, I am real. This is real. What I feel for you is real. She wants to believe him. Chooses to believe him, even as some small voice in the back of her mind whispers warnings she refuses to hear. She kisses him, rises on her toes and presses her mouth to his, and feels him shudder against her. The kiss is different tonight, deeper, more urgent, edged with a need that frightens and thrills her in equal measure. When they break apart, both of them are breathing hard, though she notices, now that she's paying attention, that his chest doesn't seem to rise and fall quite the way hers does. She pushes the thought away. Refuses to let it take root. I want, she starts, then stops, unsure how to articulate the longing that has been building in her. I want more than stolen evenings. I want to wake up beside you. I want to fall asleep in your arms. I want. Marry me. The words burst from him, raw and desperate. Marry me, Serafina. Let me give you that. Let me give you everything. Her heart stops. Stutters. Restarts with a rhythm that feels frantic and wild. You can't mean that. We've known each other only a few weeks. You don't. I know enough. He frames her face with both hands, forces her to meet his eyes. I know that every moment with you feels more real than the decades, the years, before. I know that when I'm away from you, all I can think about is coming back. I know that you are good and kind and stronger than you realize, and I know that I want to spend every remaining day of my life learning more about you. Marry me. The sisters won't approve. They'll say it's too fast, too improper, too. Then we'll marry without their approval. We'll go somewhere else, somewhere they can't interfere. Unless fear crosses his face for the first time. Unless you don't want this. If I've misread what's between us, if my affection is unwelcome, you need only say so and I'll. No, she cuts him off, fierce and certain. No, I want this. I want you. I'm just afraid. Afraid of hoping, afraid of believing this could really be happening, afraid that I'll do something to ruin it. You couldn't ruin it. His voice is absolutely certain. You couldn't possibly. Serafina, you are. He stops, and she sees him struggling with some emotion too large for words. You are everything I didn't know I was searching for. Everything I thought I could never have. Say yes. Please say yes. Yes, the word comes out on a sob. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it. He pulls her close, holds her so tightly she can barely breathe, and she feels his body shaking against hers. Thank you, he whispers into her hair. Thank you for choosing me. I swear I will spend my life being worthy of that choice. The wedding is arranged with a speed that should concern her but instead feels thrilling, like they are both racing toward something inevitable. Cassian handles all the details, finds a priest in a town 3 days' journey away, arranges for a dress that appears in her room as if by magic, hires a carriage to take them to the ceremony. She tells the sisters she is leaving to care for a sick aunt, and they accept the lie with the same mild indifference they have always shown her. No one asks questions. No one tries to stop her. No one seems to notice that she is leaving forever. On the morning of the wedding, she packs her few possessions, the poetry book, the blue shawl, 2 spare dresses, her prayer book into a small bag and walks out of the convent without looking back. Cassian is waiting at the gate with the carriage, and when he sees her his face does something complicated that might be joy or might be anguish. Last chance to change your mind, he says quietly. I would understand if you wanted to. I'm not changing my mind. She climbs into the carriage without assistance, settles onto the seat, and looks at him with all the certainty she possesses. Take me to become your wife. The journey passes in a blur of landscape and conversation. He tells her about the lodge where they'll spend their first weeks as husband and wife, a place high in the mountains, remote and beautiful and utterly private. He prepared it himself, he explains, spent the last week ensuring everything would be perfect for her arrival. She tells him about her nervousness, about the strange feeling of leaving the only home she has ever known, about the fear and excitement that war inside her chest. He holds her hand the entire way, his cool fingers laced through hers, and she draws strength from his steady presence. The church where they marry is small and old, its stones worn smooth by centuries of weather. The priest is elderly and kind, asking no questions about the hasty nature of the ceremony or the lack of family in attendance. The witnesses are a man and woman from the town locals Cassian found who agreed to witness for a generous payment and promised discretion. They watch the proceedings with curious but friendly expressions, sign the register with care, and afterward the woman presses Serafina's hand warmly. "May you find all the happiness you deserve, my dear," she says, and there is genuine kindness in her eyes. Serafina relaxes slightly. These are just ordinary people helping strangers marry. Nothing sinister. Nothing strange. She does not see the way Cassian's gaze follows them as they leave, heavy with something that might be guilt. The ceremony itself passes in a haze of candlelight and incense and the feeling of his cool hand holding hers. She speaks her vows in a voice that shakes, promises to love and honor and cherish, and when Cassian speaks his own vows she hears something in his voice that makes her heart clench. "I, Cassian Lucian Blackwood, take you, Serafina, to be my wedded wife. I pledge myself to you before God and these witnesses. What I am, what I have, what I will become, all of it is yours. This I swear on everything I hold sacred, on everyone I have lost and loved. My loyalty, my protection, my devotion, these are yours until the end of my days." She doesn't notice the careful wording, doesn't catch that he promises himself but never speaks the word love, never mentions his heart. She only hears the commitment and feels her own heart swell so large it seems impossible that her chest can contain it. The priest pronounces them man and wife. Cassian lifts her veil with trembling hands and kisses her with a tenderness that makes her forget where she is, forget the watching witnesses, forget everything except the feeling of his mouth on hers and the knowledge that she is his now, and he is hers. After the ceremony, they travel through the night in the carriage, heading higher into the mountains where the air grows thin and cold. She drowses against his shoulder, exhausted from emotion and the overwhelming enormity of what she has done. She is married. She has a husband. She belongs to someone and someone belongs to her. The lodge appears near dawn, materializing out of the mist like something from a fairy tale. Stone walls built directly into the mountainside, narrow windows, a steep roof designed to shed the heavy winter snows. Smoke rises from the chimney. He must have come ahead yesterday to light the fires, she thinks, touched by his attention to detail. Cassian carries her over the threshold even though she protests that she can walk, and she laughs as he sets her down in front of the roaring fire that fills the main room with warmth and light. The space is larger than she expected, a proper bedroom separated from the main living area by a carved wooden screen, a kitchen area with a well-stocked larder, comfortable furniture arranged to take advantage of the fire's heat. "It's perfect," she breathes, looking around with wonder. "How did you manage all of this?" "I wanted everything to be ready for you." His smile is soft, genuine. "For us. This is our beginning, Serafina. I wanted it to be perfect." It is. She turns to him, suddenly shy. "You are." He pulls her close, holds her against his chest, and she notices, now that she's paying attention, that she cannot hear a heartbeat. The thought sends a chill through her but she forces it away. Perhaps his heart beats very slowly. Perhaps she simply can't hear it through his layers of clothing. Perhaps she is imagining things because her nerves are making her paranoid. She chooses to believe the explanations. Chooses love over fear. "Are you hungry?" he asks. "I had the larder stocked. Or are you tired? We can rest first if you need." She expects her nervousness to return but instead feels only a deep, bone-tired relief mixed with excitement. A little of both. "Could we eat first?" He helps her out of her traveling cloak and settles her at the table, then moves to the larder with easy familiarity. She watches as he prepares a simple meal, bread and cheese and cold meat, wine and water. His movements are efficient, practiced, and when he sets the plate before her she realizes how hungry she actually is. As she eats, he sits across from her with his own plate. She notices that he takes very small bites, chews carefully, and seems to struggle with swallowing. When she looks up, concerned, he catches her gaze and smiles. Nervous stomach, he explains with a slightly embarrassed laugh. Being married to such a beautiful woman has left me too excited to eat properly. Give me a few days to adjust. She blushes at the compliment, accepts the explanation, and continues eating. Over the next hour, she sees him manage to consume perhaps a quarter of his food, and each bite seems to require effort. But nerves make sense, she tells herself. Many people lose their appetite when anxious or excited. When the meal is finished and the plates cleared, exhaustion finally crashes over her. Cassian helps her to the bed, helps her out of her dress with careful hands that never stray, helps her into her nightgown. Then, to her surprise, he begins to undress himself, removing his coat and shirt to reveal pale skin that seems to glow in the firelight. "May I join you?" he asks. "I promise, only to sleep. I want to hold you, Serafina. Want to fall asleep with you in my arms. But nothing more. Not until you're ready. Please." She lifts the blanket in invitation. "I want that too." He slides into bed beside her, cool and solid, and pulls her back against his chest. His arm drapes over her waist in a hold that feels protective rather than possessive, and she feels his face press into her hair. She waits for the sound of his breathing to even out, to deepen into sleep, but it never quite seems to. Or perhaps she's asleep before he is. Or perhaps. She stops the thought. Closes her eyes. Lets exhaustion claim her. Sleep comes deep and peaceful, secure in his arms, warm and wanted and chosen. The days that follow develop a rhythm that feels both new and inevitable. Mornings are difficult for him. He says the mountain sun triggers terrible migraines, so they keep the thick curtains drawn until well past noon. She wakes to find him still in bed beside her, his eyes closed, his breathing so shallow she sometimes has to watch carefully for the slight rise and fall of his chest. She tells herself this is normal. Some people sleep deeply. Some people breathe very shallowly. There's no reason to worry. By afternoon he is up and functional, and they spend their time talking, reading, learning each other. He teaches her chess using the beautiful inlaid board he produces from a trunk, shows her strategies and tactics with patience and humor, never makes her feel stupid for her mistakes. When she finally wins a game, genuinely wins, not because he let her, he picks her up and spins her around until she's breathless with laughter. "There," he says, setting her down and pressing a kiss to her forehead. "That's my brilliant wife." She glows under the praise, under his attention, under the simple miracle of being seen. He prepares most of their meals, revealing a surprising skill in the kitchen. But over the first week, she notices patterns that trouble her. He eats very little, forcing down small amounts with visible difficulty. She can see him losing weight, his already pale skin stretched tighter over his bones, his face becoming more gaunt. It's not just nervousness, she realizes. It's something worse. He looks like he's wasting away, like maintaining the pretense of eating is draining something vital from him. When she expresses concern, suggesting perhaps they should find a doctor, he waves her off with practiced ease. It's just adjustment, he assures her. Marriage, the altitude, the change in routine. My stomach will settle. Please don't worry. But she does worry. Watches him push food around his plate, watches him excuse himself after meals and return looking slightly ill, watches him grow thinner despite her attempts to cook things that might tempt his appetite. She sees it happening and tells herself it will pass, that he's right about adjustment, that worrying serves no purpose. She chooses to believe him because the alternative, that something is seriously wrong, is too frightening to contemplate. She does not notice that she never sees him in direct sunlight. Does not notice that when she suggests opening the curtains for fresh air one afternoon, he flinches and makes excuses about the glare bothering his eyes. Does not notice that his breath comes too deliberately, as if he must remind himself to perform the action. Does not notice the way he sometimes freezes mid-movement, utterly still, like something not quite human. Or rather, she notices all of these things. Files them away in some corner of her mind. But she does not let herself think about them. does not let herself connect the observations into a pattern. Because she is happy. For the first time in her life, she is deliriously, completely happy. And she will not let fear or paranoia destroy that. The nights are different. The nights are when they learn each other's bodies, when she discovers what pleasure means, when he shows her what it is to be worshipped. He is endlessly patient, guiding her through her nervousness, showing her that her body is capable of sensations she never imagined. And when they finally come together, when he moves inside her with a care that speaks of devotion, she feels complete in a way she has never experienced. The first time hurts, she expected that, but his gentleness makes it bearable. He whispers reassurances, moves slowly, watches her face for any sign of distress. And when pleasure finally blooms through the discomfort, she gasps his name like a prayer and feels him shudder above her. On their fourth night as husband and wife, after they have made love and she lies boneless and satisfied against his chest, something happens that she will replay in her mind 1,000 times over the coming months. She feels his lips brush her shoulder. Feels the slightest scrape of teeth, just a graze, almost imperceptible. She thinks nothing of it, assumes it's part of the kiss. But then there's a sharp sting that makes her flinch, a sensation like being pricked by a thorn. "Forgive me," he breathes against her skin, and his voice is raw, broken, anguished. "Forgive me, I didn't mean to." "It's all right," she tilts her head instinctively, confused but not frightened. "Did you bite me? It's okay, you can mark me if you want. I'm yours." She feels him shudder, a full-body tremor that shakes the bed. His lips press against the small wound and she feels wetness that might be tears. When he pulls back, she reaches up to touch the spot and her fingers come away with the barest trace of blood. "I hurt you," he sounds devastated, tortured, like he has committed some unforgivable sin. Barely she brings her bloody fingers to her lips without thinking, tastes copper and salt, and laughs softly to ease his obvious distress. "Cassian, I've had worse from the rose thorns. It's nothing. Come here." She pulls him down into a kiss, and if his mouth tastes faintly of her own blood, she doesn't register it as strange. She's too focused on comforting him, on showing him that she's not hurt, that she trusts him completely. After, he holds her so tightly she can barely breathe, his face buried in her hair, his body shaking. She falls asleep in his arms, unaware that he lies awake the entire night, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with something she cannot see. The days blur together after that night. 8 weeks pass in a haze of contentment, waking to his cool body beside her, spending afternoons reading while he watches her with an expression she cannot decipher, making love in the firelight while the first snows of winter begin to fall beyond the windows. She has never been so happy. Has never felt so completely, perfectly seen. But the small oddities continue to accumulate. She notices them all, tucks them away, refuses to examine them too closely. The way he never eats breakfast with her anymore, claiming his stomach can't handle food in the mornings. The way his hands sometimes grip the table edge hard enough that she hears the wood creak. The way he grows thinner and paler, his skin taking on an almost translucent quality, while she blooms with health and happiness. One afternoon, about 7 weeks into their marriage, she wakes from a nap feeling strange. Her breasts are tender. Her stomach is unsettled, not quite nausea, but something close to it. She tells herself it's nothing, but the feeling persists over the next few days. Then, about 2 weeks after she first noticed the changes, she realizes she's missed her monthly bleeding. Terror and joy war inside her chest in equal measure. She counts days, recounts them, counts them again. She's never been particularly regular, but she's now 3 weeks late. Combined with the other symptoms, there's only one explanation that makes sense. She carries his child. Their child. The impossible made flesh inside her body. For days she tries to find the courage to tell him. She plans elaborate reveals, a special dinner, a carefully worded letter, a gift that will communicate what words cannot. But every time she opens her mouth to speak, fear closes her throat. What if he isn't ready? What if he doesn't want children? What if this changes everything between them? What if he leaves? The fear of abandonment is so deep and so old that it paralyzes her. She was left once, by parents she never knew. What if love is not enough to make someone stay? What if even the man who swore to cherish her forever decides that a child is too much responsibility, too great a burden? So she says nothing. Keeps her secret pressed close to her heart. Waits for the perfect moment that never seems to come. For weeks after she first suspects, 8 weeks into their marriage, she knows with absolute certainty. Her body is changing in ways she cannot deny. And tonight, she decides. Tonight she will tell him. She has picked wildflowers from the small patch that somehow grows near the lodge despite the encroaching winter. She has arranged them in a vase on the table in the shape of a tiny bouquet, the traditional symbol for pregnancy in the old stories she read as a girl. She has practiced the words 100 times in her head. But when he comes in from chopping wood for the fire, one of the few outdoor tasks he manages during the dim afternoon light, his expression is wrong. Closed off. There is something in his dark eyes that makes her stomach clench with a dread she cannot name. He stands in the doorway, snow melting on his shoulders, and looks at her like he is memorizing her face. Like he is saying goodbye. We need to talk. His voice is flat, emotionless, devoid of all the warmth she has come to expect, and she feels the bottom drop out of her world. All right, her hand moves unconsciously to her stomach, protective of the life that grows there. I actually have something I need to tell you too. Something important. I know the words are bitter, sharp as broken glass. I've been suspecting for days now. Your heartbeat has changed, slower, steadier, like your body is working harder. And then, 2 days ago, I started hearing it. The second heartbeat. Faint at first, but growing stronger with each passing hour. Impossible, but there. She blinks, confused and frightened by the certainty in his voice. Hear it? How could you possibly? Because I'm not human, he says it simply, brutally, like he is ripping off a bandage and doesn't care how much it hurts. I am vampire. Undead. Monster. I have been lying to you since the moment we met, and everything, every word, every touch, every promise has been part of an elaborate revenge plot against your father. The words don't make sense. They land like stones thrown into still water, creating ripples but not quite penetrating to the depths where comprehension lives. She stares at him, waiting for the punchline, for the explanation that will make this make sense. My father. Her voice sounds strange to her own ears, distant and hollow. I don't have a father. I was left at the convent as an infant. I don't know who my parents are. You have a father. His voice is relentless now, cruel in its precision, each word chosen to inflict maximum damage. High Priest Valerus. The man who leads the church's vampire purges, who has spent his entire career hunting and destroying my kind with zealotry that borders on madness. You are his bastard daughter, Seraphina. The evidence of his sin that he hid away in shame. The product of a brief affair before he took his holy vows, a mistake he tried to erase by sending you to that convent and pretending you never existed. She shakes her head, still not comprehending, not wanting to comprehend. No. That's not. Why would you even? And he cuts her off, continues relentlessly, and she can hear anguish beneath the cruelty, but it doesn't make the words hurt less. I courted you, married you, brought you here with the intention of transforming you into the very thing he hunts. I was going to make you a vampire, Seraphina. I was going to turn you into an immortal symbol of his hypocrisy, make you live for centuries as the walking proof of his failure. Every moment of tenderness, every gentle touch, every whispered promise, all of it calculated to make you fall in love with me so completely that when I destroyed you, you would shatter utterly. The room tilts. She grabs for the table to keep from falling, her knees threatening to give out, her breath coming in short gasps that don't seem to pull in enough air. No. No, you're lying. This is some kind of sick joke. You're not, you can't be. I am. He moves toward her and she sees it now, sees what she has been refusing to see for 8 weeks. The inhuman grace. The predatory stillness. The way his eyes catch the firelight and throw it back wrong, reflecting like an animal's. 300 years ago, your father led a purge that destroyed my coven. He killed the woman who turned me Irina, who was like a mother to me, who taught me how to survive as what I am, while I watched in silver chains that burned my flesh. I was newly turned, weak, and he made sure I was conscious for every moment. He drove a stake through her heart while she begged him to spare me. Then he burned an entire village, men, women, children, and called the dead martyrs to his righteous cause. I have spent 3 centuries building power, becoming king of my kind, waiting for the perfect revenge. And then I found you. Stop, she is crying now, hot tears tracking down her face, her breath coming in gasps. Please stop. But he continues, merciless, like he needs to purge himself of the words even as they destroy her. The forgotten daughter. The shameful secret hidden away where no one would ever find her. I thought it was perfect. Court her, make her fall in love with me, marry her, and then destroy her in the most complete way possible. Transform her into a monster and reveal everything at once, show her that every moment of tenderness was manipulation, that she means nothing except as a weapon against the man who abandoned her. That her father valued his reputation more than her life, and that the man she loved used her to wound him. The man I'm supposed to believe is my father. Her voice shakes, but she forces the words out anyway, tries to find anger to fight back the crushing weight of grief. A man I've never met, who you claim left me to rot in a convent. Why would I care about his opinion? Why would becoming what you are hurt him if I don't even know him? Because you would be proof of his sin walking the earth for centuries. He steps closer and she backs away until she hits the wall, trapped in her own home. Because the church would have to acknowledge you, would have to deal with the fact that their holiest priest fathered a child out of wedlock and then created a monster. Because every time he looked at you, he would see his own damnation reflected back. Because you would be immortal, Seraphina, living forever with the knowledge that your own father valued his reputation more than your life, and that the man you loved used you as a blade against him. The perfect revenge. The ultimate cruelty. The cruelty of it steals her breath. The elaborate architecture of her destruction. She can see it all now with terrible clarity, every carefully planned moment, every calculated kindness, every false promise. The man she loves doesn't exist. Never existed. Was just a mask worn by something that wanted to use her as a weapon. And the baby. Her hand is pressed flat against her stomach now, holding on to the only real thing left in her fractured world. What was your plan for the baby? Something cracks in his expression, the first genuine emotion she has seen since he started this terrible revelation. Pain floods his face, raw and devastating. There was no plan for a baby because there can't be a baby. Vampires cannot create life, Seraphina. We're dead things. Animated corpses. We can only steal life, corrupt it, end it. What you're carrying is impossible according to every law of nature I understand. It shouldn't exist. But it does. She straightens despite the tears, despite the pain that feels like it's tearing her apart from the inside. Her voice gains strength, turns sharp as any blade. It exists and it's yours, ours, and everything you did to me, you did to this child too. You say you wanted revenge against my father? Congratulations. You succeeded beyond your wildest dreams. You took his daughter, a daughter he never wanted, a daughter he threw away, and you broke her so thoroughly she doesn't know how to keep standing. But you also created life with her, which means some part of what happened between us had to be real. He is shaking his head, backing away like she's the one who is monstrous. No. No, that's not. I didn't mean to. His words are fragmenting, his careful control shattering before her eyes. There's an ancient ritual, a blood covenant so old most vampires don't even know it exists. In the time before the church hunted us so systematically, vampires and humans sometimes formed true partnerships. The covenant was how such unions created life. But the church destroyed that knowledge centuries ago, made sure the world believed we were purely evil, incapable of genuine feeling. I didn't even know it was still possible. He continues, his voice breaking. It must have activated when we, the first night we made love. I was trying so hard to control myself, to hold back my true nature, and I gripped the headboard so hard it splintered. Cut my palms. And when I touched you, my blood must have mixed with yours during the intimacy. Combined with the vows we spoke, with the emotional connection, it triggered something I didn't even know was possible. She stares at him, trying to process this new information. So the pregnancy is because of vampire magic? Some kind of spell? Not a spell. A covenant. He looks wrecked, destroyed. It requires absolute authenticity of feeling to activate. Genuine love from the vampire, willing vulnerability, a sacred commitment willingly made by both parties, and complete emotional openness in the moment of union. It's why it's been lost to time, because most vampires are incapable of that level of genuine feeling. We become too consumed by hunger, by hate, by the emptiness of immortality. And his voice breaks completely. God, Serafina, I fell in love with you. That's the worst part. That's the thing I can't escape. I fell in love with you before I even understood what was happening, and my own heart betrayed my revenge. The pregnancy is proof that what I felt for you that first night, what I've felt every moment since, was devastatingly, irrevocably real. But I couldn't stop the plan. I couldn't let 300 years of hate go even when love was pulling me in the opposite direction. So you chose hate. She cuts him off, her voice steadier than she feels, stronger than she has any right to be. You felt love and you chose hate anyway. That's what you're telling me. Yes, the admission is barely a whisper. Yes. And I have destroyed us both because of it. She looks at him, really looks at him, and sees the truth of what he has laid bare. No more pretense. No more masks. Just a monster who looks human, who feels things humans feel, who made monstrous choices despite that capacity for feeling. All those small things I noticed, she says quietly, and her voice is numb, detached. The way you didn't breathe normally. The way you struggled to eat. The way you were wasting away trying to maintain the pretense. I saw them all. I filed them away. And I chose not to think about them because I was so desperate to believe that someone finally wanted me. I chose blindness, Lucian. I am complicit in my own deception. No, he moves toward her and she holds up a hand to stop him. No, Serafina, you are not to blame for. Get out. The words are quiet but final, carrying all the weight of her shattered heart. Get out and don't come back. I don't want to see you. I don't want to hear your voice. I don't want your apologies or your explanations or your regret. You wanted to destroy me? Well, you succeeded. I hope it was worth it. I hope 300 years of hate was worth more than 8 weeks of love, because that's what you traded. That's what you chose. Serafina, please, you have to understand. He reaches for her and she flinches away so violently she slams into the wall. Don't touch me. She screams it, the sound tearing from her throat raw and ragged, and she sees him physically recoil. Don't you dare touch me. You don't get to comfort me. You don't get to hold me while I break. You did this. You chose this. Every morning you woke up next to me and chose this. Now get out. He goes. Moves to the door with that impossible speed she now understands, and pauses there with his hand on the frame, his back to her. His shoulders are shaking. I will keep you safe, he says quietly, his voice breaking on every word. You won't see me, but I will make sure nothing touches you. You and the child. I swear it on Irina's memory, on everything I am, everything I have left. I don't want your protection. I don't want anything from you. I know his voice cracks completely. But you'll have it anyway. It's all I have left to give. It's the only way I know to love you now. Then he is gone, and she is alone in the lodge with her shattered heart and her impossible child and the ruins of every dream she let herself believe in. She slides down the wall, wraps her arms around her knees, and sobs until her throat is raw and her eyes are swollen and there are no tears left inside her. The snow falls heavy and silent beyond the windows, blanketing the world in white emptiness that matches the void inside her chest. The fire crackles in the hearth, indifferent to her pain. And inside her, beneath her heart, a second heartbeat pulses steady and strong, proof of a love that was real despite the lie it grew from, proof that even monsters can create something beautiful when they forget, for just a moment, to be monstrous. She doesn't know how long she sits there. Minutes or hours or days, time has lost all meaning in the aftermath of devastation. But eventually the cold seeps into her bones and forces her to move. She cannot stay here. Cannot remain in this place that holds nothing but the ghost of false promises. But outside the snow is falling in sheets, and night is coming on fast, and she is alone in the mountains with no horse, no map, and no knowledge of which direction might lead to safety. She is trapped by weather and circumstance, forced to spend at least one more night in the place where her heart was broken. So she does what she has always done when the world becomes too much. She works. She strips the bed with methodical precision, removing every trace of him, every reminder of the nights she spent wrapped in arms that were only pretending warmth. She builds up the fire because she is suddenly, terribly cold in a way that has nothing to do with temperature. She forces herself to eat because the child inside her needs sustenance even if she feels like she will never want food again. As she moves through these automatic tasks, her mind begins to work again, begins to process what she has learned. A father. She has a father. High Priest Valerus, who leads the church's most brutal campaigns against the supernatural, who is known throughout the territories for his zealotry and his cruelty. The man who abandoned her to hide his shame, who let her grow up believing she was unwanted by everyone rather than claim her as his own. The man whose actions set this whole nightmare in motion. She should hate him. Should rage against the father who left her vulnerable to this revenge. But all she feels is a vast, echoing emptiness. Another person who saw her as something to be hidden, to be ashamed of, to be used. Her father used her absence to maintain his reputation. Lucian used her presence to destroy that reputation. Neither of them ever saw her as simply Serafina, just a woman trying to live a quiet life, just a person who wanted to matter to someone. The baby flutters inside her, the first true movement she has felt, and she gasps at the sensation. Her hand flies to her stomach and she feels it again. Tiny, fluttering, unmistakably alive. "Hello," she whispers to the child who should not exist, her voice hoarse from crying. "Hello, little one. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you're caught in this mess, sorry your existence is tangled up in hate and revenge and broken promises. But I promise you," her voice cracks but she forces the words out anyway. "I promise I will love you enough for both of us. I will not abandon you like I was abandoned. I will not use you like I was used. You will be wanted. You will be chosen. You will be loved." The baby moves again, as if in response, and despite everything, despite the pain and the betrayal and the shattered dreams, Serafina feels something fierce and protective bloom in her chest. Love. Not for the monster who fathered this child, but for the child itself. For the impossible life that pulses beneath her heart. She spends 3 days in the lodge, trapped by the storm that rages outside, surviving on the food in the larder and the grim determination not to let grief consume her entirely. On the 4th day, the snow stops and pale sunlight breaks through the clouds. She packs what she can carry, clothes, food, the little money Lucian left in a drawer. She hesitates over the poetry book. Picks it up. Puts it down. Her hands tremble as she touches the embossed cover. This book represents everything, the lie, yes, but also the only time anyone ever chose something specifically for her, ever noticed what she loved and cared enough to act on it. Even if the giver was a monster. Even if the gesture was calculated. She almost leaves it. Then picks it up again. Because it's hers. Whatever his intentions, he gave it to her, and she has so little in this world that was chosen for her. She packs it. But she does not pack the blue shawl. Leaves it draped over the chair where he placed it, a ghost of tenderness she can no longer bear to touch. She sets out down the mountain path without looking back. Will not give the lodge or the memories it holds any more power over her than they have already taken. The journey down is brutal. The cold bites through her cloak with teeth of ice, the path is treacherous with frozen snow and hidden ice beneath fresh powder, and her body, already changing, already accommodating the life inside her, tires quickly. Her legs, strong from years of work at the convent, carry her steadily but she has to stop frequently to rest, to catch her breath, to force herself to keep moving when every instinct says to curl up and surrender to the cold. The main road is clear enough to follow, she can see where travelers have packed down the snow before her. She doesn't need navigation skills, just endurance and the will to keep walking. She stays on the road, knows that eventually it will lead her down to the valley, to civilization, to safety. But exhaustion, pregnancy, inadequate food, and emotional trauma take their toll. By the 2nd day she can barely walk. By the 3rd, she collapses beside the road and lies there in the snow, watching her breath plume white in the freezing air, wondering if this is how she dies. She thinks of the baby, forces herself to stand, keeps walking. What she doesn't see, cannot see, are the threats that should have found her. The wolf pack that tracks her scent for miles, hunger driving them to follow, only to turn away at the last moment with whimpers of fear. The bandits who spot her from their camp and begin to approach, seeing easy prey, only to flee with terror in their eyes from something they cannot see. The vampire who stalks her scent through the forest, drawn by the smell of her blood, before vanishing with a frustrated hiss. She doesn't see the shadow that follows at a distance, ensuring her path stays clear, removing every danger before it can touch her. She doesn't see him because he made a promise that she would never have to see him again, and this is the only way he knows to keep it while still keeping her safe. It takes her a week to reach the first village, and another week after that to find her way to the small town of Ashford. By the time she arrives, she is exhausted beyond measure, hungry in a way that makes her dizzy, and so heartsick she can barely function. An old woman, Mrs. Hartley, a widow who runs a small boarding house, takes one look at her swollen eyes and trembling hands and offers her a room in exchange for help with the household tasks. "You look like you've been through hell, girl," Mrs. Hartley says bluntly, her weathered face kind despite the harsh words. "And you're carrying a baby, unless I miss my guess. Where's the father?" Dead. The lie comes easily, feels true enough. The man she thought she married is dead, replaced by a monster wearing his face. "There was an accident. I have nowhere else to go." Mrs. Hartley studies her for a long moment, and Serafina can see the questions forming about the nature of the accident, about why she has no family to turn to, about the circumstances that led a pregnant woman to arrive alone in winter with nothing but the clothes on her back and a single book clutched to her chest. But then the old woman's expression softens. "We all have our sorrows, child," she says quietly. "And we all have things we'd rather not speak of. I'll ask you this once, and then never again. Are you running from someone dangerous? Is there a man who might come looking for you?" Serafina thinks of Lucien, of his promise to stay away, of the shadow she sometimes thinks she sees at the edge of her vision. "No," she says finally. "He won't come for me. He promised he'd stay away, and I believe that promise is the one true thing he ever gave me." Mrs. Hartley nods slowly. "All right then. You help me with the house and the shop, and I'll ask no more questions you don't want to answer." "Fair." Fair. Serafina feels something in her chest loosen slightly. "Thank you." Mrs. Hartley shows her to a small room under the eaves, barely large enough for a narrow bed and a chair, but it's warm and clean and hers. She collapses onto the bed and sleeps for 16 hours straight, dreamless and exhausted. She builds a new life from fragments and determination. She takes in mending, helps Mrs. Hartley sell herbs and simple remedies in the market, saves every coin she can for the day when the baby comes. She does not let herself think about Lucien, does not allow herself to wonder if he really is keeping watch or if that was just another lie. She focuses on survival, on the life inside her that grows bigger every day. Mrs. Hartley is kind but respectful of boundaries. She asks no more questions about Serafina's past, offers no judgment about her circumstances. When the townspeople whisper, and they do whisper, about the pregnant woman with no husband, about the mysterious circumstances of her arrival, Mrs. Hartley defends her fiercely. "Girl's a widow," she says sharply to anyone who dares comment in her hearing. "Lost her husband in a terrible accident and has no family to turn to. Show some Christian charity or keep your tongue still." The whispers don't stop entirely, but they quiet. Ashford is a more progressive town than some, used to travelers and strangers, and eventually Serafina becomes simply part of the landscape, the quiet young widow who helps Mrs. Hartley and keeps to herself. They develop an easy companionship built on routine and mutual need. Mrs. Hartley needs help she can no longer provide herself, and Serafina needs a safe place to bring her child into the world. The months pass. Autumn surrenders to winter's full grip. Her belly swells, round and obvious, and she feels the baby kick and turn and hiccup. Each movement reminds her that love is possible even in the wreckage of betrayal, that something good can grow from poisoned roots. She thinks sometimes about the man who wore Cashin's face, about the rare moments when his mask slipped and she saw genuine anguish underneath. She wonders if he really did love her, or if even that was just another layer of the deception. She wonders if it matters. She decides it doesn't. Love that leads to such cruelty is not love worth having. On a cold morning in early spring, 6 months after she fled the lodge, Serafina is in the market buying eggs when she feels eyes on her. She turns, her hand automatically going to her swollen stomach, and sees 3 men watching her from across the square. They wear the dark cloaks and silver medallions of church hunters. Their gazes are fixed on her belly with an intensity that makes her blood run cold. She knows, somehow, that they have found out. The church has been investigating, searching for High Priest Valerus's illegitimate daughter after rumors surfaced about his youthful indiscretion. They tracked her from the convent to this town, and now they've put together enough pieces to suspect that something is wrong with her child. She turns to run, but they are already moving, cutting off her escape with practiced efficiency, herding her toward the alley where no one will see what happens next. Her heart hammers and she thinks wildly of screaming, of fighting, of doing anything to protect the life inside her. "Easy, girl," the tallest one speaks, his voice deceptively gentle despite the blade visible at his hip. "We're not here to hurt you. We just have questions about the father of your child." "I don't know what you're talking about." Her voice shakes, but she holds her ground, one hand pressed protectively over her belly. "My husband died months ago in an accident. I'm just trying to survive long enough to bring his child into the world. Please, I haven't done anything wrong." Your husband, the second hunter, younger than the others with kind eyes that don't match the weapon he carries, shakes his head slowly. "The one a shepherd saw carrying a woman into a mountain lodge last autumn, a pale man who moved with unnatural grace. The one who was never seen during daylight hours, who left no tracks in the snow? That husband." Her heart hammers against her ribs so hard she feels dizzy. "How do they know? How could they possibly?" "He's dead," she repeats, putting every ounce of conviction she possesses into the words. "Whatever he was, he's gone now. The child is innocent. Please, just let me." "The child is an abomination." The third hunter speaks for the first time, and his voice is cold, certain, carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "Half vampire. A monster waiting to be born. The church cannot allow such a creature to live. It goes against the natural order, against God's law, against everything we stand for." "No," she backs against the wall, her arms wrapping around her belly in futile protection. "No, you can't. He's innocent. He hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't even been born yet. Please, I'll go away, I'll take him somewhere you'll never find us, I'll raise him to be good, just please don't." Step away from her. The voice comes from behind the hunters, low and deadly and achingly familiar, and Seraphina's heart stops. Lucian emerges from the shadows at the alley's mouth, and she sees him clearly for the first time as what he truly is. No attempt to appear human now, his skin is marble pale, almost glowing in the dim light of the alley. His eyes are utterly black pools that reflect no light, endless and ancient. And when he speaks she sees the fangs, sharp and white and undeniable. He is terrifying. He is beautiful. He is the monster who destroyed her life and the father of her child, and she doesn't know whether to scream for him to save her or to run from him as fast as she can. He looks worse than she remembers, gaunt to the point of emaciation, his skin stretched tight over bones that seem too sharp, shadows so deep under his eyes they look like bruises. He looks like something is consuming him from within, like he has been burning himself away piece by piece. "The Vampire King," the tall hunter's voice is grim, resigned. "We were told you had vanished. Abandoned your throne. There are rumors throughout the territory that you gave up your power, that you've gone into hiding." "I did." Lucian's gaze is fixed on Seraphina, and she sees in his expression every ounce of the anguish she has been carrying for 6 months. Every sleepless night, every moment of grief, every shattered dream reflected in his face. "I gave up everything to keep her safe. Dismantled my own kingdom piece by piece. I passed my territories to my most trusted lieutenant and made it look like retirement rather than abandonment, spread rumors of my weakening to explain my withdrawal, survived 3 assassination attempts from ambitious vampires who thought I'd become easy prey. I made myself vulnerable. Became nothing. And I would do it again. I will die before I let you touch them." "Then you'll die." The third hunter moves with surprising speed, his blade flashing silver in the dim light, and Lucian doesn't even try to dodge. He stands there, arms at his sides, and waits for the blade to fall. "No." The scream tears from Seraphina's throat before she can think, before she can stop herself. She lunges forward, getting between the blade and the monster, her hands raised in desperate, foolish protection. "Stop. Please, stop." The blade halts an inch from her chest. The hunter stares at her like she has lost her mind, like she is the most incomprehensible thing he has ever witnessed. Move, girl. You don't know what he is. You don't understand what he's done. I know exactly what he is. Her voice is steadier now, powered by a fury she didn't know she possessed, by 6 months of surviving and a fierce determination to protect the life inside her. He's a liar and a manipulator, and he broke my heart so thoroughly I didn't think I could survive it. He used me as a weapon against a father I never even knew I had. He planned to destroy me for revenge, and he succeeded in ways I'm still discovering. I know all of that. She takes a breath, keeps her eyes on the hunter's face, refuses to look at Lucien even though she can feel his presence like heat against her back. But I also know that for the last 6 months, he has been following me, protecting me from threats I never even saw. He has been removing every danger before it could touch me, has been ensuring that I could survive long enough to bring our child safely into this world. He has given up his power, his throne, his entire existence to keep me safe. And I know, her voice cracks but she pushes on. I know that the child I carry could only exist because some part of him genuinely loved me. The ancient covenant that created this life requires absolute authenticity, true love, genuine vulnerability, complete emotional openness. You can't fake it. You can't manipulate it into existence. The magic knows the difference. So yes, he is a monster. But he is also the father of my baby, and he has spent 6 months proving that monsters can choose to change. The hunter's blade wavers. He looks to his companions, uncertainty written across his weathered face, the absolute conviction from moments ago cracking. She's carrying something that shouldn't exist. The tall hunter speaks slowly, carefully, like he's working through a puzzle he doesn't understand. A child born of vampire and human. That's not possible according to everything we know, everything the church teaches. Vampires are dead things. They cannot create life. It's a fundamental truth of our doctrine. And yet here I am. Serafina keeps her voice steady, channels all her fear into fierce determination. 6 months pregnant with a child who kicks and moves and hiccups like any other baby. If he was truly an abomination in the way you claim, wouldn't I be dead? Wouldn't this pregnancy have killed me by now? Wouldn't I be transformed or corrupted or destroyed? But I'm not. I'm human. I'm alive. And my son, she stops, realizes she's claimed a gender she doesn't actually know. And my child is alive and growing strong. Doesn't that tell you something about God's will? Perhaps it tells us that we don't know everything. The young hunter with kind eyes steps forward, sheathes his blade with deliberate care. Perhaps it tells us that God's creation is more complex than the church has taught us. I've never encountered anything like this. A half-vampire child where the mother remains human and healthy, where the pregnancy itself seems blessed rather than cursed. He looks at his companions. If this pregnancy truly violated God's law, wouldn't there be signs? Wouldn't the woman be suffering? But she's thriving. The child is thriving. Or it's a trick. The third hunter's voice is harsh, uncertain. A deception to what end? The young hunter cuts him off. Look at her. Look at him. Does this look like deception? He gestures at Lucien, who still hasn't moved, who stands like a statue waiting for execution, his entire being focused on Serafina. A vampire king who gave up his throne to protect a human woman? Who dismantled his own power to keep her safe? Who won't even defend himself now because he believes he deserves death for what he did to her? I am still willing to die. Lucien speaks for the first time since the confrontation began, and his voice is quiet but absolute. Take my life if you must. Bring my head to the church as proof that the vampire king has been destroyed, that the terror of the night is ended. Tell them whatever story serves your purposes. But spare her. Spare the child. They are innocent in all of this. Everything wrong here is my doing, my choices, my sins. Let me pay the price for them. It's all I ask. It's more than I deserve. The words leave Serafina's mouth before she fully processes them, and she hears herself defending the man who destroyed her with a conviction that surprises her. Whatever happened between us, whatever he did to me, the baby is blameless. This child didn't ask to exist. Didn't choose his parents or the circumstances of his conception. She presses her hand to her stomach where the child has begun to kick, agitated by her fear and elevated heartbeat. He's just a baby who deserves a chance to live. To grow up and make his own choices about what kind of person he'll be. Don't punish him for his father's sins. Don't kill him for the crime of existing. The three hunters exchange long looks, a silent conversation passing between them in glances and small gestures. The young one speaks quietly to his companions, gesturing at Seraphina's belly, at Lucien's emaciated form, at the entire impossible situation before them. Finally, the tall one nods slowly, coming to some decision. This is beyond our authority to judge. We've never encountered anything like this in all our years of hunting. The theological implications alone, he shakes his head. We will report this to the church. Let them decide what should be done about a half-vampire child and the king who gave up everything for a human woman. Let the scholars and theologians debate whether this represents corruption or, he pauses, seems to struggle with the words. Or whether it represents something else entirely. Something that challenges what we think we know about the nature of vampires and the possibility of redemption. He turns to Seraphina, and his voice softens slightly. We will recommend mercy for you and the child. You are clearly a victim in this, whatever else is true. And the child, he looks at her belly with something that might be wonder. If such a thing can exist, perhaps God has purposes we cannot fathom. Then he looks back at Lucien, and his expression hardens. But you, if you ever take a human life again, if you ever return to your throne, if you ever give us any reason to hunt you, we will show you no mercy. We will show you no quarter. And next time, no pregnant woman will be able to stand between you and our blades. Understand? I understand completely. Lucien's voice is thick with emotion he's not trying to hide. Thank you. You are better men than I deserve to encounter. More merciful than I have any right to expect. I will not waste this chance. The hunters leave, and Seraphina is left standing in the alley with the monster who fathered her child. The silence between them is vast and heavy with everything that has been broken and cannot be easily repaired. For a long moment, neither of them moves. Neither of them speaks. Then Lucien takes a careful step back, putting more distance between them, respecting the boundary she needs. You came back. Her voice is barely a whisper, and she still hasn't turned to look at him directly. I never left. He stays where he is, doesn't try to approach. I've been following you since the day you walked away from the lodge. Keeping you safe from the shadows. Making sure nothing could hurt you or our child. I told you I didn't want your protection. I know. But I gave it anyway because it was all I had left to offer. He looks at her stomach, at the visible swell of the child, and something in his expression breaks completely. Pain and longing and desperate hope wore across his gaunt face. You said son to the hunters. You know? I don't know. I feel like it's a boy. But I could be wrong. She wraps her arms around her belly, protective. Even if I'm right, that doesn't change anything between us. The words are harsh but her voice wavers, and she knows he can hear the uncertainty beneath the anger. I did fall in love with you. The words burst from him, desperate and raw. Seraphina, please, you have to believe me. I did fall in love with you. Before I even understood what was happening, before I could stop it or control it, I fell completely and irrevocably in love. The plan was always to destroy you, but somewhere in those 8 weeks at the lodge, destroying you became destroying myself. Every morning I woke up next to you and told myself that today I would execute my revenge, and every morning I chose to wait one more day because I couldn't bear to end what we had. Because being with you felt more real than 3 centuries of existence. Because you made me remember what it was to feel something other than hate. Then why did you do it? The question tears out of her, the one she has been carrying like a stone in her chest for 6 months. If you loved me, if it was real, why did you tell me? Why did you destroy everything? Because 300 years of hate doesn't disappear just because you fall in love. His voice is raw, honest in a way that hurts to hear. Because every time I looked at you, I saw her, Irina, the woman your father killed. Because I was so twisted up inside I couldn't tell the difference between justice and cruelty, between honoring the dead and destroying the living. Because I was a coward who couldn't choose love over revenge even when love was the only thing that had made me feel alive in 3 centuries. Because I thought I owed it to Irina to complete what I started, and I didn't understand until it was too late that she would have hated what I'd become in her name. She taught me compassion, and I repaid her memory with cruelty. She finally turns to look at him fully. Really looks at him for the first time since that terrible night 6 months ago. He is skeletal, his pale skin drawn so tight over his bones that he barely looks human anymore. There are shadows under his eyes that speak of endless months without rest. His clothes hang loose on his wasted frame. He looks like he is being consumed from within by something that will not let him rest. "You look terrible," she says quietly. I feel worse. A ghost of a smile crosses his face, but it doesn't reach his eyes. Turns out destroying the only good thing in your life, then spending 6 months watching from the shadows as she suffers the consequences of your choices, is not conducive to peace. Or to maintaining any pretense of vitality. Good, the word comes out harsher than she intended, but she doesn't take it back. Then, softer, "You're starving yourself, aren't you?" "Not feeding. I feed enough to survive. To maintain the strength to protect you." His voice is matter-of-fact. "But I take no pleasure in it. I take no more than I must. It feels like the least I can do, to suffer as you've suffered." That's not. She stops herself. She will not feel sympathy for him. Will not let his self-destruction move her. "That's your choice. Not my responsibility." "I know." They stand in silence for another long moment. Then Serafina takes a shaky breath and says what she came here to say, what she's been turning over in her mind for months. "I can't forgive you." The words are quiet but firm, a boundary she needs to draw. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did was cruel and calculated, and it broke something inside me that I'm not sure can be fixed. You took someone who had never been wanted and made her believe she was precious, and then you revealed it was all a lie. That's not something I can just move past." I know he accepts this without argument, without trying to convince her otherwise. But she takes another shaky breath, gathering her courage for what comes next. "That baby in there is yours as much as mine. And he, or she, deserves to know their father. Not the monster, not the vampire king, but the man who gave up everything to keep us safe. The man who has been following me for 6 months, protecting me even though I told him I never wanted to see him again." She pauses, forces herself to continue. "I'm living with Mrs. Hartley on the east side of town. Small cottage with blue shutters. You could come by sometimes. Not often. Just so the child knows you. When they're born. So they don't grow up the way I did, not knowing where they came from." Hope flares in his face, so bright and painful it hurts to look at directly. For a moment he looks young, vulnerable, almost human. "You mean that? You're not. This isn't cruelty, is it? Offering hope only to take it away." "I mean it." She forces herself to meet his eyes, to let him see her sincerity even through her pain. "I mean that I see the good man underneath the monster, and I think that man deserves a chance to be a father." But Lucien, she uses his real name deliberately, refusing to call him Cassian anymore, refusing to pretend the man she married ever existed. "If you hurt us again, if you lie to me even once, if you do anything to make me regret offering you this chance, I will find a way to destroy you myself. I will dedicate whatever remains of my life to it. I will become the weapon you tried to make me, and I will use it against you. Do you understand?" "I understand completely." His voice is thick with gratitude and relief and determination all tangled together. "Thank you. Thank you, Serafina. I swear to you on Irina's memory, on everyone I've lost and loved, on the centuries I've walked this earth, I will spend the rest of my existence proving that I can be worthy of this gift. I will be the father our child deserves, and I will." He stops, seems to struggle with the words. "I will earn back your trust. However long it takes. Whatever I have to do. Even if it takes the rest of your natural life. Even if you never fully forgive me. I will keep trying." She nods, suddenly exhausted by the weight of this conversation, by the emotional toll of the last hour. Her back aches, her feet hurt, and all she wants is to go home and lie down. "I need to go. Mrs. Hartley will be worried." "Can I?" He hesitates, and she sees vulnerability in his face that reminds her painfully of moments she thought were real. "Can I walk you home? I promise to keep my distance, but I want to make sure you get there safely." She should say no. Should maintain firm boundaries. Should not give him even this small thing. But her feet hurt and her back aches, and the idea of walking alone after everything that just happened feels overwhelming. And despite everything, despite all the lies and all the pain, some part of her still feels safer when he's near. That thought frightens her. But she is too tired to fight it. Fine. But stay 5 paces behind. And don't try to talk to me. He nods, and she turns and begins walking. True to his word, he follows at exactly 5 paces, silent as a ghost. She feels his presence like a weight between her shoulder blades, protective, desperate, hopeful. She doesn't turn around. Doesn't acknowledge him. But she doesn't tell him to leave either. When she reaches Mrs. Hartley's cottage, she stops at the gate and finally looks back. He stands in the street, and she notices with a start that although the sun is setting, casting long shadows across the cobblestones, he's positioned himself where the last rays of weak sunlight can touch him. His skin doesn't smoke or burn, but she can see him flinch slightly, can see the pain it causes him, a deep discomfort, like standing too close to a fire, but bearable. "How are you?" She gestures at the fading sunlight, confused. "You said morning light gave you terrible headaches. But you're standing in the sun." Weak sunlight, filtered and fading, is bearable. Painful, but bearable. For a little while his voice is quiet. Strong, direct sunlight, the morning sun through windows, midday sun in open spaces that would burn me. Cause real damage. But this. He holds up a hand, and she can see his skin reddening slightly, like a bad sunburn developing in fast motion. "This I can endure. For you. To show you I'm here." She doesn't know what to say to that, doesn't want to be moved by his willingness to suffer. So she changes the subject. "Tomorrow evening. After full dark. You can knock on the kitchen door. We'll talk about what comes next. For the baby." His expression transforms, becomes something radiant and painful simultaneously. Joy and agony and desperate hope all mixed together. "Thank you. I'll be there. I promise. I won't let you down again." She goes inside without another word, closes the door behind her, and leans against it while her heart hammers and tears stream down her face. She doesn't know if she's crying from pain or relief or fear or all three at once. She only knows that she has taken the first fragile step toward something that might be forgiveness, might be reconciliation, might be nothing but more heartbreak. But she has taken it. And tomorrow evening, when he knocks on the kitchen door, she will open it. Will let him in. Will begin the slow, painful work of building something new from the ruins of what they were. For their child. For the impossible baby who is proof that even the deepest hate cannot completely extinguish love. For the future that waits, uncertain but theirs to shape. She rests her hand on her swollen stomach and feels the baby kick in response, strong and steady and alive. Whatever happens, whatever path they walk from here, that life will be protected. Will be loved. Will be given every chance to be more than the sum of his parents' mistakes. And perhaps, she thinks as she wipes her tears and moves toward the kitchen where Mrs. Hartley is preparing dinner, perhaps in teaching their child to be good, they will learn to be good themselves. Perhaps in raising this baby together, broken monster and shattered human, they will find their way back to what was real beneath all the lies. Perhaps. It's a small hope. A fragile thing, as delicate as the first flowers of spring. But it's enough to keep breathing, enough to face tomorrow, enough to believe that love, however poisoned at its root, however built on lies and revenge, might yet grow into something worth keeping. She touches her stomach again, feels her child move beneath her hand, and whispers a promise into the quiet kitchen. "We're going to be all right. I don't know how, and I don't know when, but we're going to be all right. All three of us." And somewhere in the gathering dusk, a shadow moves through the streets of Ashford. No longer king but not quite nothing. No longer the man who planned elaborate revenge but not yet the father he hopes to become. Just a broken creature trying to learn what redemption means, trying to figure out how to live with what is done, waiting for tomorrow evening when he will knock on a kitchen door and begin the long, impossible work of earning something he doesn't deserve. But he will try. For the rest of his existence, however long or short that may be, he will try. Because love, real love, the kind that creates life against all possibility, the kind that survives betrayal and still offers a second chance, demands nothing less than everything. And for the first time in 300 years, he has found something worth giving everything for. He steps back into the shadows as the last light fades, and begins the long wait until darkness falls and he can knock on that door. Until he can begin the work of becoming someone worthy of the gift he's been given, the chance to be a father, the possibility of redemption, and the faint, fragile hope that someday, somehow, the woman he destroyed might look at him without pain in her eyes. It's more than he deserves. But he will spend every remaining day of his immortal life trying to earn it. Because that's what love is. Not the lie he told. Not the revenge he plotted. But this, the daily choice to do better, to be better, to keep trying even